All right, take a seat. Welcome to your pre-flight explainer. I'll be your senior flight instructor today. And look, before I sign you off for that very first solo flight, we really need to have a serious talk. We spend hours and hours up there practicing perfect takeoffs and butter-smooth landings. But today we're going to cover the serious abnormal operations you absolutely must be ready to face. Because when you are up there alone in the left seat, there is literally no one sitting next to you to save you. The responsibility of the aircraft, your life, and the safety of everyone down below, it rests entirely in your hands. It's all on you. So let's dive right into this.
Okay, before we even crack open a manual, before we touch a single switch or even glance at a checklist, you need to answer one absolutely critical question about surviving an in-flight crisis. Imagine alarms are blaring or the engine just violently coughed and completely died. What is your most essential task?
Seriously, think about it for a second.
Well, here is the answer, and I want you to burn this rule into your memory. If any problem occurs in flight, the most essential task is to maintain flying speed and control the airplane's flight path. You aviate first, always. You maintain your flying speed, and you treat dealing with the emergency as totally secondary to flying the actual airplane. If you stop flying the plane while you're trying to troubleshoot a problem, well, you won't be around to care if you actually fixed it. Speed is quite literally life, and controlling your path is your single greatest priority.
All right, Section 1. Before we roll, we're looking at handling fires.
Let's start on the ground before we even taxi out to the runway. Now, as you know, you need three things to create a fire: fuel, oxygen, and an ignition source. So what happens if your engine catches fire right as you turn the key? Your gut instinct might be to just turn everything off and run, but actually, scratch that. Your very first move is to keep the engine turning with the starter. Why? Because you want to suck that fire right back into the engine. By keeping the engine cranking, you create a vacuum, and that pulls the flames and the combustible fuel-air mixture harmlessly back through the intake manifold and into the cylinders where they belong. While you're doing that, pull the mixture control to idle cutoff, or turn the fuel selector off. That purges the induction system of fuel, starves the fire, and usually, it just goes right out. But say those flames don't immediately go out. Now you need to act really fast. There's no time to second-guess yourself. You're going to execute these 4 steps rapidly. Turn the fuel off completely, flip all your switches off to kill the electrical systems, firmly set your parking brakes so the aircraft doesn't go rolling into another plane or a fire truck, and finally, grab your fire extinguisher and abandon the aircraft. Get out, get clear, right away.
Okay, now what if you're already in the air, you smell burning insulation, or worse, you see smoke? For a cabin or an electrical fire, you grab your extinguisher to hit the source. But remember our golden rule? You have to maintain your flying speed and flight path while you're dealing with it. If it's electrical, kill your master switch. Once the flames are actually out, open the vents to get some cabin ventilation going. Seriously, do not take this lightly. Those toxic fumes can and absolutely will incapacitate you if you leave them trapped in the cabin with you. From there, prepare for an immediate landing. Once you're safely on the ground, secure the plane and get out.
Moving right along to Section 2, the go/no-go zone. Let's talk about aborted takeoffs. Picture this. You're lined up perfectly on the runway center line. You push the throttle full forward. You are now entering a highly critical phase that essentially splits the runway into 2 distinct realities: the accelerate phase and the stop phase. That tiny moment right between them, that's your decision point. If any major problem occurs while you are accelerating, you must make a firm, conscious decision right then and there to transition to the stop phase. Do not hesitate. You simply cannot take a broken aircraft into the sky hoping you can just figure it out later.
So, what actually triggers that immediate abort decision? Well, you abort if an animal or a vehicle wanders out and obstructs the runway. You abort if your flight controls feel restricted or kind of jammed up in any way. You absolutely abort for an engine failure or even just a slight, unexplained loss of power. If an instrument looks weird, like say your airspeed indicator is reading 0 but you're clearly barreling down the pavement, abort. Ultimately, if you have literally any doubt in your mind that the airplane is fully capable of flying, you stay on the ground, period.
To properly execute the abort, it's a quick 3-step dance. Immediately pull that throttle fully closed to kill all your thrust. Next, use your rudder pedals to maintain strict directional control. You want to keep that nose wheel right on the center line so you don't veer off into the dirt. Finally, apply firm, maximum braking. But hey, be really careful here. You want smooth, heavy pressure without locking the wheels up. If you lock them, you're going to blow a tire, lose all directional control, and make a bad situation exponentially worse. All right, Section 3, Airborne Emergencies, Engine Failure After Takeoff.
We've covered the ground roll, but now we need to talk about the absolute climax of an emergency response. You've just lifted off, the ground is falling away, and suddenly, total silence. In aviation, we call this EFATO, engine failure after takeoff. It's a sudden loss of thrust right on your climb out, and when you feel that happen, your reaction must be automatic, prompt, and decisive. You have to immediately push the nose down to the glide attitude. If you freeze up and hold that climb pitch without any engine power, your airspeed will bleed off in seconds and you will stall before you even process what went wrong. As you can see illustrated here, once you instantly drop the nose to your gliding attitude to maintain that vital flying speed, your eyes need to be scanning out the forward windshield. Imagine a cone projecting straight out in front of you. You are going to pick a landing spot somewhere within a 30-degree arc directly in front of the nose. Now sure, you might deploy flops to cushion the landing if you have the time, maybe complete your emergency checks, broadcast a mayday, but your primary, number one job is flying that aircraft all the way down to the ground right in front of you. And that leads me to a crucial point. Do not turn back. I can't emphasize this enough. This is without a doubt the hardest rule for a rookie pilot to learn. Your powerful, entirely human instinct is going to be to try and turn around to the safety of that nice, paved runway you just left. But listen to me. From less than 500 feet of altitude, attempting a descending turn back to the runway will result in massive, rapid altitude loss. You will likely stall the aircraft, enter a spin, and you will not survive it. Land straight ahead. It is infinitely better to hit a farm fence at 40 knots under complete control than to literally drop out of the sky in an uncontrolled stall.
Okay, Section 4, Cruising Altitude Emergencies, In-Flight Power Loss. So what happens if you're a bit further along in the traffic pattern, at a much higher altitude? Maybe you're on the downwind leg, and your engine just sputters out and dies. Well, you have a little more time, but the priorities, they remain exactly identical. Following our priority order, your immediate action is to aviate first by adopting that gliding attitude. Promptly after that, select a field ahead of you, and again, ideally within that 30-degree arc of your nose. If time permits, run your engine restart checks to see if you can wake it back up. Switch your fuel tanks, hit the fuel pump, check your mixture, and finally, if it is completely dead and you're fully committed to your landing site, broadcast your mayday call. Now, when you are maneuvering to that field you selected, you must make only gentle turns. I'm talking no more than 15 degrees of bank. Why? Because low-level gliding turns are incredibly dangerous. They cause really high rates of descent. And as the ground rushes up at your windshield, your human instinct is going to absolutely scream at you to pull back on the yoke to stop the descent. But without engine power, raising the nose while you're in a steep bank will immediately cause the wing to stall. That results in a deadly, inadvertent spin at an altitude where recovery is just downright impossible. Keep your turns shallow, gentle, and disciplined. What if the failure happens while you're turning onto your base leg, or even on final approach? Look, you have to face a really harsh truth right then and there. You can no longer reach the runway. Do not try to stretch your glide by pulling the nose up. You'll only slow down and stall right short of the pavement. Adjust your pitch attitude first to maintain your optimal glide speed, and simply accept wherever the aircraft is going to reach. Cut the corner if you safely can, but maintain your flying speed above absolutely everything else. I want to leave you with a really famous piece of aviator wisdom. One of the most useless things in aviation is runway behind you. This is exactly why good airmanship dictates that we start our takeoff roll using the full maximum length of the runway every single time. If you experience an engine failure shortly after lifting off, having a few thousand feet of remaining runway straight ahead of you could be the very thing that saves your life. Never, ever cut an intersection just to save yourself a 2-minute taxi. Use all the pavement available to you. And that brings us to the end of our explainer. The mechanical steps of survival? Well, they're all printed right there in your manual. But the calm, methodical conditioning, the sheer instinct to shove that nose down, to ignore the burning urge to turn back, and to fly the plane all the way to the crash site if necessary, that has to be hardwired into your head. So, as you prepare to walk out to that flight line completely alone for the very first time, are you ready to maintain your speed, control your flight path, and truly take command of this aircraft? I know for a fact you are. Have a great flight.